Well, welcome to the Helping Families Be Happy podcast, where we explore the often messy world of family love and relationships. I'm your host for this podcast, Christopher Robbins, the co-founder of Familius, husband, father of 9, author, fly fisherman, and backpacker based in the beautiful Central Valley of California. We hope to bring you nourishing real-life information about love, family, relationships, and life. Now, today, I am thrilled to introduce our guest, Antonia Squire. Now, Antonia is a veteran children's bookseller of 20 years on both sides of the Atlantic. She began her career in the San Francisco Bay Area before relocating to the UK in 2015. She joined the King's English Bookshop, one of my favorite stores in the entire world, in 2023 as children's buyer, where she also serves as board president of Brain Food Books, the King's English's not-for-profit arm, uplifting communities one book at a time. Today, we're discussing some of the best children's books you'll want as you build your children's library. The podcast aligns with the Familius habits Learn Together and Read Together. You can learn more about the Familius 10 Habits of Happy Families by going to the Habit Hub blog on Familius.com. For the video of this podcast, please go to the Familius YouTube channel. And as always, you can find a significant and wonderful library of available books at Familius.com and the King's English to help your family be happy. So, Antonia, thank you for taking time out of reading so many children's books today to talk with us.
Oh, you're most welcome.
All right. Now, let's just talk about building a children's library. Do you have any guiding principles that our audience might wish to consider as they think, I need to get some books and help our toddler or our young adolescent begin reading?
I would actually start earlier than that. I would start at the baby shower. I first heard about it a while, probably about 11 years ago, when my best friend's little sister was having her first baby. And rather than a card at the baby shower, they wanted them to bring a baby book, a children's book, something their favorite. And because I'm an independent bookseller, she said, okay, and you have to buy it from an independent bookstore. So there were quite a few people around the San Francisco Bay Area going, is West Portal a bookstore? Is Green Apple an independent bookstore? And so yes, and yes to all of the above. And it's wonderful because you start right there, right at the very beginning of a child's life, and you already have a library in place simply by saying, don't get us a card, get us a book. And then you write in the book. And one of my favorites for baby showers, to give at baby showers, is 10 Little Fingers, 10 Little Toes, by the inimitable Mem Fox, and illustrated by Helen Oxenbury, who also did We're Going on a Bear Hunt, by Michael Rosen. And this is just stunning. There once was a baby who was born far away, and another who was born on the very next day. And both of these babies, as everyone knows, had 10 little fingers and 10 little toes. And it's just stunning. It has beautiful rhyme. The illustrations are multicultural. So it's perfect for any family at all. It's just gorgeous. One of my favorites. And so as people come in for a baby shower gift, and I'm like, okay, this is the top choice on that one. So absolutely gorgeous.
Well, and I have to add, as you would say across the pond, lovely. It's just lovely.
Thank you. So yeah, that's, I think, where you start. And then reading, it's never too old to read to a child, ever. And it doesn't have to be, it's lovely to actually sit with a child in your lap and read a board book that they can interact with.
Can I just mention on that, you said it's never too old. In fact, they are never too old.
They're never too young. They're never too old. It's never too early. Sorry, was what I meant to say. No. It's never too early. Because I do a lot of research into this, one of the nicest things that I've read is when you read to a child, you're not teaching them to love story. You're not teaching them to interact. When you have a child on your lap, a baby, an infant, however old, what you are teaching that child is that they are worthy of your time, that they are loved.
Absolutely. And I can tell you a quick story. So when I have 9 kids, as you know, when I had just, I think, 4 at home, which included some little bit older boys, I introduced them to Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. And to do that, I read the book out loud to them every night. And it took a year, but in finishing that book for them out loud and doing the voices, and it became this memorable experience that they love that. And since that day, all of my kids have asked me to read different books to them. And so it's just, as you said, it's just such a wonderful experience. And on your lap next to you, they begin to develop a love of learning, a love of reading, just a curiosity, and their imagination explodes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Another one I wanted to talk to you about for a little bit older. I recommend this one for sort of first birthday. It's a brilliant first birthday present, is Tales, because it's touch and feel and lift the flap and totally interactive, just gorgeous.
Very creative.
And so much fun. So here we have Tails, wag, wag, wag. It's just so cute, so funny, so much fun to do. The kids can play with it themselves, but it's just so wonderful for that first birthday present. And, you know, bringing in books as birthday presents, people are like, oh, well, you know, I'm the boring aunt, I'm the boring granny, I always buy books. No, books are awesome. Books are an incredible means of entertainment, means of learning, means of imagination, inspiration. Books are fantastic.
Every present I ever received from my grandparents, both sets, was a book. Now, I'm a book publisher, and I don't think that happens for everyone, but I'm so grateful if that's what they did.
Mm-hmm. And as a bookseller, one of the things that we always bemoan is nobody ever buys us book gift cards anymore. It's like, well, what do you want? I don't know. I want a book token, is what they're called in the UK. And here they're like, oh, I want a gift card for the King's English or for wherever you're independent. And booksellers don't get book gift cards anymore. Because people are like, well, you work in a bookstore, you don't need them. I'm like, I still buy books.
Right. Well, we'll have to make sure you get a book card from Familius.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so those are some great books to begin our experience with our children. It's never too early to begin. But what as they start to grow up and they're toddlers or going into board books or picture books even?
The wonderful thing about children's publishing is it just builds. And historically, children's booksellers, children's publishers, children's authors have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. People will say to them, well, what, when are you going to write a real book? Or why don't you sell real books? Or why don't you read real books? I'm like, let's take a step back for just a moment. Anybody who has a career in books, who loves books, that love of books was built when they were children. The children's book industry is the foundation of the entire industry. You don't have authors or poets, or even artists, anyone who's in the art world, in any form of creator. Every single one of them reads, and most of them are voracious readers. But going into that, as they start getting into toddlers, is rhyme, repetition, and a couple of them. So Pout Pout Fish is brilliant. This is sort of 2, 3, and it's It's also so much fun to read, but when you're really doing children's books, and especially at this age, ones that are designed to be read aloud, you have two audiences. You have the young child, or even the infant, because this can be again read at any age, who needs to enjoy it and needs to be engaged by it. But you also have the caregiver who needs to be able to read it 50, 100, 200 times in a row and not get sick of it. And Pout Pout Fish is a brilliant one for that. It's deep in the water where the fish hang out lives a glum, gloomy swimmer with an ever-present pout. I'm a pout fish with a pout face, so I spread the dreary wearies all over the place. Blub, blub, blub. And all the other fish come and try and cheer him up. And he's just like, no, no, blub, blub, blub. And then finally, now along comes a fish in a silent silver shimmer the gang has never seen before, this bright and brilliant swimmer. She approaches Mr. Fish, but instead of saying, hey, she plants a kiss upon his pout, and then she swims away. Mr. Fish is most astounded. Mr. Fish is just aghast. He's stone-faced like a statue. Then he blinks and speaks at last. My friends, said Mr. Fish, I should have known it all along. I thought that I was pouty, but it turns out I was wrong. I'm a kiss fish with a kiss face for spreading cherries all over the place. Smooch, smooch, smooch.
That's so funny. What an excellent job you did at reading that book.
Thank you. It's so much fun to read. I read it on a regular basis because I do have a tendency to read books out loud to, well, pretty much anyone who will listen.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Okay.
Then we have some, then you start getting into picture books. Now, I am a big believer that when the publishers put 4 to 8 on picture books, that really, even kids who are learning to read, even those that are starting to decode and starting to read the early readers and early chapter books, still need picture books. Because because they are designed to be read aloud. The language is more sophisticated. There is often a more sophisticated storyline and story arc that you get within the picture book that you don't necessarily get. Certainly in the early readers, as valuable as those are for creating literacy and the decoding and helping the kids actually learn to read by themselves. So the first one I wanted to talk to you about is I Eat Poop. I picked this one for two reasons. It's Mark Pett. One, he is local to Salt Lake City, but also it is hilarious. This is a story of a dung beetle who's really embarrassed when he's at school because all the other bugs have their sandwiches and they all eat in lunch, and he's just too embarrassed to eat his poop sandwich at lunch in front of all the others. And then it turns out one of his other friends realizes that he eats weird stuff too. And then all the other insects tell him, well, I ate this. And then the praying mantis goes, my mom ate my dad. Which is, so it's educational. You'll get to learn all about insects and hilariously funny. So yeah, definitely have to have I Eat Poop because it's brilliant. Another of my favorites is the Gruffalo. Again, we've got rhyme and rhythm on this one, and it is super, super cool. I'll just read you the first page. A mouse took a stroll through the deep, dark wood. A fox saw the mouse, and the mouse looked good. Where are you going to, little brown mouse? Come and have lunch in my underground house. It's terribly kind of you, Fox, but no, I'm going to have lunch with a Gruffalo. A Gruffalo? What's a Gruffalo? A Gruffalo? Why, didn't you know? He has terrible tusks and terrible claws and terrible teeth in his terrible jaws. So you have this little mouse who the fox and the snake and the owl all want to eat him. And he scares them all off by tales of the Gruffalo. Little does he know that the Gruffalo actually exists. And the Gruffalo wants to eat him too. And he's like, no, 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 you can't eat me because I am the most fearful animal in all the wood. And then said, follow me. And sees all the other animals run off, but they're really running off because the Gruffalo's behind him. The Gruffalo's like, you're terrifying, and leaves him alone. And the mouse just sits, eating his acorn, happy as can be. It's hilarious and it's funny. So I'm huge on humor in children's books. That if we can get all of us laughing, parents, children, the works, then that is really just the way to go.
And a book like that teaches children irony.
Yes. Yes. It teaches so much resilience as well as irony. So that's wonderful. Another one that I love just because the illustrations are superb and it's a little subversive, I have to say, but really funny. And it is I Want My Hat Back. And this doesn't have so much of a story or a story arc. And a lot of the story is actually told through the illustrations as well as the words, but it's also one that is great for just those beginning readers and hilariously funny. So
it's very creative, very clever.
Yes.
Those are some wonderful books. So help us understand like age ranges. So, I mean, every child is different, but what's your recommendation in terms of introducing them to toddler books or to board books or to picture books? We say 4 to 8 as a publisher, but what do you recommend?
Generally for this kind of picture book, I'd say 3+, depending on which one it is that you're looking at. Because a lot of these, so Pale Pal Fish is available in picture book as well, but you can have it in board book. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is do the kids, when they start becoming toddlers, they want to turn the pages themselves. This will last longer. If we're going to be really honest about it, this will last a lot longer, less likely to tear the pages. Once they start being able to turn a page without tearing it, then you move on to the actual paper pages rather than the cardboard pages.
Right, that is true. Board books are a little bit more durable for page turning.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the kids want to turn the pages.
Okay. Any other favorites you wanted to share with us?
I've got 2 more. One of them is The 11th Hour. Now, this I would actually say it is a picture book. It is gorgeous. But I think this can go up to 10. Maybe earlier, because not only is it a great fun story and it's a great narrative arc, but for this, it's a mystery. And when you get to the end, you have to go back to the beginning and look through all the pages and find out and follow them so that you can solve the mystery. This can take hours. I've known 8-year-olds take 7 hours to work it out. I had a young woman working for me. She was 23, I think. Took her 5 hours. But even at 22, she's like, I am going to solve this.
What a creative book.
Incredibly creative. Graham Bass is an amazing illustrator. One of my absolute favorites. But yeah, we've
enjoyed him for 30 plus years, haven't we?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And that's the other great thing about kids books is so many of them just don't get old. Mm. And you'll still be able to find the ones that you loved when you were a kid. Most of them, they're still in print.
Well, it took me to be an adult and to have my own children to really get the juxtaposition of what Sindak did and where the wild things are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll eat you up. I love you so has much more meaning now than it did when I first experienced that book.
Hmm. Oh yeah, no, and another classic. I didn't bring it. And then the last one I wanted to talk to you about is really imaginative. Again, interactive. Lift the flap, and funnily enough, from Familius.
Oh,
So after a while, crocodile. This is just wonderful, because we have all these little sayings. See you in a while, crocodile. See you later, alligator. In a while, crocodile. And it's wonderful. So you have this rise and shine porcupine, and then you lift the flap, and there's a little porcupine in bed. Wide awake, kitty, wait. There she is. And then we can lift the flap down here. And there it is. There's the kitty wake. It's just gorgeous. And it goes through the day. Oats a brown orangutan. Fill the bowl, star-faced mole. All these wonderful, wonderful illustrations. And just taking it through the day, brushing your teeth, going to school, getting your lunch. I need to pee. It's just wonderful. See you later, alligator. After a while, crocodile. And you also get to see what mom does while she's at work, which I, as a kid, I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to stay home with my mom. And so she said, well, what are you doing today, mummy? Oh, laundry. Was what she would always say, because that was boring and I didn't want to do laundry. Now, she wasn't doing laundry every day, but some little just, yeah, we're just doing laundry. You go have fun at school. It'll be really boring at home.
well, you're a better person than I am, because I always tell my kids, oh, well, you're at school. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to be doing. Mom and I are going to be scuba diving. We have this trip to Hawaii. For lunch, we're having surf and turf. Oh, and then we're having so-and-so come visit us. Gonna go see Brad Pitt and have a little lunch with him.
Right. Yeah, no, my mum was really good. And then, of course, I did bring a couple of chapter books.
We would love to hear about those as well.
So again, the reading aloud to your children for as long as they will tolerate it. So if they still want you to read aloud to them when they're teenagers, keep doing it. And I know a lot of families that still, couples that read aloud together, they read aloud to their families, multi-age families, and everybody just sits around and they read the books, they listen to the books, and they're wonderful. But two of my favorites, old classics, but Ramona the Pest. Cannot go wrong with Ramona the Pest. Ramona is a remarkable child who, she's the youngest, she's got an older sister, but this is her first day of kindergarten, and she is going to go and she is going to enjoy it. And this is wonderful. This is a phenomenal read aloud, but not only that, it's also one that they can read well for themselves. And that is the point at which you're getting the breadth, when you start getting into the chapter books, the breadth of things that you can do together, and then you can continue reading older chapter books, even if they are not quite at the point, the child is not yet at the point where they can actually comprehend while reading, when they haven't quite got to that point in the decoding, or they're still on those early chapter books and they're just practicing. You can still continue reading to them so that they get the richness of the story, which a lot of kids still love. And then the other one, of course, because you can't go wrong with Charlotte's Web.
I love that story. And I have to tell you that all over the summer, my daughter and I raised a pig. And we'd go to the barn every day and take care of this pig. And we just had the fair last week. But I couldn't help but thinking about Charlotte's Web as we took care of her pig named Carden every day.
Oh, and pigs are incredible animals. They really are.
And this pig would look forward to Mary coming. When he saw her, he would like jump up and like run around all excited to see her. And then
Mhm.
she would pet him and bathe him and oil him and massage him. It was ridiculous.
Of course he was pleased to see her. It's like, oh, this is the
I,
life.
I love Charlotte's Web. Childhood favorite and still is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so wonderful. And the friendship and the life lessons that you get from Charlotte is it's iconic, it's beautiful, and just amazing.
Well, this has been delightful. You've given us a wonderful list of books for anyone to begin their children's library. And, my wife says you can have too many books, but I just haven't figured out how to do that yet. So, and,
Yeah, I do have to cull occasionally. I'm actually at home, and these are my bookshelves. So I do have to cull because I get so many from the publishers that I need to read in order to decide whether I'm going to bring them home with me or bring them into the store for other people to share. That I simply cannot just keep them all. Fortunately, we have our not-for-profit, Brain Food Books, which takes donations and gives a lot of these books to new homes for kids who don't have regular access and don't have breadth of choice in titles, which is amazing. And one of the things, I actually decided to choose 10 books to talk about today because 10 is actually the tipping point for childhood success is 10 books in the home. Wow. If there are 10 books in a child's home, and they can be of any age, but if there are 10 books in the child's home, then that child is guaranteed to do better in life than their peers who don't have access to books.
So for our listeners who would like to help with your nonprofit, how can they reach you?
Brainfoodbooks.org.
Brainfoodbooks.org.
Brainfoodbooks.org, and it tells you all about what we do and how we do it. We are focused on access and choice. So that those kids can actually choose the book that speaks to them, that book that will change their lives. Because we all have it. We all know which book that is. Where the one that just inspired them to read, and they knew that, okay, this is it. This is what I want to be doing. And so much reading builds empathy. It enhances knowledge. It's educational. It's entertaining. And it's relatively cheap for entertainment, and it'll keep you entertained for hours. And it is a child sitting in your house with a book in your living room. It's safe.
Yeah. Let me add that don't ever be afraid of allowing your children to really. Everyone wants your children to be, sterling scholars that you have in Utah, or they want them to go to be an Oxford scholar, right? But
right.
Really, not everybody is going to have that. But so people want them to read nonfiction, which is super important.
Mm-hmm.
Let them read fiction. And why? Because after they've read 1,000 stories, they've experienced life vicariously for 1,000 different people.
Yes.
And it's an amazing experience to also see all these different choices that people make in literature and where that leads. So, and
both good and bad.
Yeah, that's right. There are consequences.
Right.
Both good and bad decisions. And don't be afraid of letting them read the book again and again and again and again, right? Sometimes you'll find a favorite book and they will just not stop reading it. And for me, when I was a child, it was James and the Giant Peach. I wore that book out for some reason. I just loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. Danny Champion of the World was my favorite.
Yes.
Again, Roald Dahl, but Danny was always my favorite. James, I loved James, but Danny was mine.
Do you remember the first book that you read on your own?
Yes, I do. It was called Mother, and it was part of a reading scheme in the UK in the 70s. It was called Mother, and I read it start to finish. They let me take it home. And then I went through all the Janet and Johns and Jennifer and Jonathan Yellowhats and all those. I would say, and then Topsy and Tim, which are little 8x8s. I would say the first book I read by myself, and I would have been 6, and it was quite a thick chapter book, was by Enid Blyton, which is pretty much where everybody starts in the UK. It was Mr. Pinkwhistle. And he was a magic brownie who was invisible and went around helping people, teaching people lessons, understanding who they were. There was one of these stories was of a really grumpy, hostile, older blind man. And all the kids hated him, and he was really mean, and he shouted at all the children. And then there was it was written in the 40s. So when I say there was a puppy that was being drowned in a bag. So Mr. Pinkwhistle saves the puppy and gives it to the blind man. And it turns out the blind man was just lonely.
Yeah.
And he just wanted, I mean, it was 6, so I'm pretty sure I've got that right. But the blind man just wanted, and the puppy just needed to be loved, and they both just needed to be loved. Right. And so now they're both really happy. But that stuck with me for almost, 45 years now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, mine was Danny and the Dinosaur by Sid Hoff, if I remember.
Still a classic.
Yeah. Keeps if I remember it, the best-selling children's book of all time I've read is actually The Pokey Little Puppy.
Yes. Oh, still carry the Pokey Little Puppy. Still got that in stock. Still a classic. Yep.
Well, this has been so wonderful. You've really given us some great ideas, and I hope that our audience will find time to buy more books. Let's get at the very least 10 books into our homes so that our children have a greater probability of success. And if you have time like we do, thousands of books will even have a higher probability of success.
Absolutely.
And Antonia, in addition to Brain Food, where can our guests find you online?
Kingsenglish.com.
Kingsenglish.com, one of the seminal and best independent bookstores in the country. So thank you. Well,
thank you.
As we conclude today's podcast, I'd like to thank Familius and, of course, King's English for bringing this support of this podcast to your ears and your heart. We'd be thrilled if you subscribe to the podcast and left a review. And when you're ready for that next amazing book adventure, we'd be honored if you chose a book from Familius. One step at a time, one book at a time, one going to King's English at a time, you can make the world a happier place.